On my journey into better understanding law of attraction and coming to terms with and accepting the idea that I'm a conscious creator of everything that happens to me in my life, it forces me to go back and take a look at some of the things that have shown up in my past and spend a little bit of time unpacking why I believe those things showed up and what thought pattern had I engaged in prior to those events that could have resulted in them showing up in my life. When I arrived in Guatemala, which was my second Central American country, I had literally checked into a hostel. I went out the following day to go and find a place to stay. I was looking at a couple of different apartments. And as I left the hostel, I headed out, went out into the street. I met with an estate agent. I traveled around for most of the afternoon. And when I returned later that evening to the hostel, probably around 5 p.m., one of the other travelers that was staying there told me that her locker had just been broken into. And in that moment, my heart sank. I knew that my locker had definitely been locked before I left. I had been very careful about making sure that the $500 and my passport and my camera and my GoPro and a whole lot of quite valuable things had been securely locked away. And in that moment, I walked into the room and I saw that my locker was standing empty, and the door was open, and the stuff that I'd left inside had been stolen. Anyway, the point of the story was just I went back to consider why that may have happened to me. And in the months and weeks leading up to me coming to Central America, I had been deciding between going back to Asia and coming to Central and then on towards South America. And my thought process had been a lot around this idea that I'm a little worried about Central America. I know it's dangerous. I've heard bad things about it, like all the narcos and gangs and all that stuff. And, Asia had been so peaceful and such an amazing place, but I did sort of feel like I wanted to get back to Central America, or rather arrive in Central America for the first time. And I guess that had been thoughts and focus for me in my decision making and in all the time leading up to me arriving in Central America that had potentially been scrappy in terms of the fact I had allowed those thoughts to continue, perhaps unaware of the fact that I'd been thinking those things. And as I look back now in hindsight, I realized that my camera and stuff getting stolen was very much a function of the factory proving to me exactly what I had been thinking, because like attracts like, and those very thoughts are the way that you create the things that show up in your life according to law of attraction. So with that in mind and that lesson learnt, I am in Mexico, and I've heard some stuff about Mexico and places in Mexico. Don't go here. Mexico City is an amazing city, but it can be quite dangerous. Some people have said the north of Mexico has got very dangerous areas that you need to be careful of. And so it's led me to be a little more conscious of understanding how I interpret the information that I'm given from people, whether it's in the form of speech or images or whatever that information is. I'm processing that information and being very conscious of how I think about it. And in addition to that, I am going through the process of every single day writing down what I call orders from the factory for the day. And those are things that I want to show up in my life. And one of the things I've been writing over the last couple of days is to have the factory show me peaceful, happy Mexican people, because really I'd been potentially fearful of something happening to me or potential violence or any of that sort of stuff, which seems to be like an underlying thought that comes to me when I think about Mexico. So I've been writing this down, and pretty much since I've arrived in Mexico, I have met nothing but the most beautiful people. And this evening I arrived in Oaxaca. I don't know anything about Oaxaca. Some people had just suggested that it was a cool city to be in. I posted into a Facebook group that I was looking for somewhere to stay. It's called Oaxaca Accommodation for Rent. It's all in Spanish. I posted in English. Somebody tagged somebody else who sent me a message and gave me an address of somewhere to stay. And I've arrived, and I've clearly arrived in a place that's not the tourist area. I'm the only gringo that I've seen since I've been here. And so I arrive, the most amazing guy checks me into the room. He speaks hardly any English. I speak a limited amount of Spanish. Check into the room, and I ask him where a restaurant is, and he sort of points to it on my phone, on the Google map, to show me where it is. And then I say to him in my limited Spanish, like, is it dangerous there, as a question. And he's like, no, no, it's muy tranquilo. And even the way he said it sounds relaxing and chilled. And so with the idea that I create everything in my life, I walked out into the streets of this, I would say, like relatively poor area, and decided that I was going to create an amazing experience that wasn't filled with fear, despite me walking completely alone in Mexican streets in a town that I know nothing about, and heading off to go and find a restaurant that this guy had sort of pointed out on a Google map, which was about 5 blocks of walking away. So I start greeting every single person that I come across in the street, and in my limited Spanish, every single person is amazing. And I then found myself walking towards the area where I believed that this restaurant was going to be, and I have to go down a little side street which gets super dark, and it's like, there's like a stray dog, and my mind starts to become a little bit anxious, and I start to be concerned that maybe this could be an unsafe place, I guess. And I'm just thinking, well, just bring beautiful people into my space. I walk a little bit further around the corner, and I can sort of see some flashing lights, and there's a big road in front of me, and I can sort of hear music. So I continue to walk towards this music, and I come across what can only be described as probably the most peaceful and beautiful place that I couldn't have designed a more peaceful place where I felt more secure. And it had basically been a really informal setup of like a small street carnival for kids, where they had these little rides going around for kids and like a small tombola type thing. And the kids that were on the rides, there was probably only about 4 or 5 rides, and probably no more than 10 kids spread across them, with their families looking on, the kids sort of screaming in excitement as they went around on these little rides. And then the only people less excited than them, but not by much, were the parents standing there taking photos of them on their phones. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And it was just a really, sort of a stark reminder that if you go out there and look for people to rip you off and things to get stolen and stuff like that to happen, you can almost always find those things. And I think that's really how law of attraction and this powerful factory works. It just sends you stuff that you think about. And I was thinking about beautiful, peaceful people and hoping that it was going to send that to me. And that's exactly what I've seen since I've arrived in Mexico. So I'm really enjoying this journey that I'm on, and I hope that some of the stuff that I'm learning is potentially resonating maybe with you in terms of just being conscious of how you think and being aware of how the very thoughts that you think end up being the very things that show up in your life.